Do you hear that sound? That's not the laugh of a man who just won the lottery. That isn't the laugh of a dad playing catch in the backyard on a sunny Sunday. That is the sound of an operating system. A biological computer that just solved a math problem the rest of humanity gave up on. The problem wasn't how to sell a book. The problem was, how do you hack the psychology of 7 billion people? The man who owns that laugh is Jeff Bezos. And today, we aren't talking about his $2 trillion net worth. Those numbers are boring. They're sterile. We're going to talk about the price he paid to get it. Let's rewind 30 years, 1994. Picture yourself in a car. Not a Ferrari. Not a spaceship. A beat-up Chevy Blazer. The AC is broken. Outside, endless cornfields blur past in a cloud of red dust. Behind the wheel is Mackenzie. Smart, soft-spoken. A woman who, just months ago, thought she was settling into a quiet, upper-middle-class life. She's driving, eyes locked on the horizon, trying to hide the knot of anxiety in her stomach. And in the passenger seat is Jeff. He's not the swole, bald action hero you see today. He's scrawny. His shirt is 2 sizes too big. His eyes are manic behind thick glasses. On his lap, he's balancing a clunky laptop the size of a brick. He's typing. Typing like a madman. Typing like his life depends on it. They are doing something most sane people would call suicide. They are running. Not from the law. Not from debt. They are running from safety. Jeff just quit his job at D.E. Shaw, a massive hedge fund on Wall Street. He walked away from a salary that 99% of Americans only dream of. He had the corner office, the expensive suits, the golden parachute. He could have played golf on weekends and retired with respect. But Jeff Bezos had a disease. A psychological condition with no medical name, but in business, we call it the existential dread of mediocrity. Inside that cold, algorithmic brain, he saw a number 2,300%. That was the growth rate of the internet that year. Most people looked at that number and saw a bubble. They saw a scam. Jeff saw a closing door, and he knew if he didn't squeeze through it right now, he would spend the rest of his life being eaten alive by regret. He called it the regret minimization framework. Sounds nerdy, right? But put yourself in his shoes. Imagine you're 80 years old. Wrinkled skin, shaking hands, sitting alone in a dusty armchair looking back at your life. What haunts you? It's not the failure. You can recover from failure. It's the what if. It's the ghost of the chance you didn't take. That fear, that primal terror of being just another grain of sand in the desert, pushed Jeff Bezos into that Chevy. He went all in. The destination? A garage in Bellevue, Washington. If you saw that house, you wouldn't believe an empire started there. Freezing in the winter, an oven in the summer. And inside that cramped garage, Jeff did something that became a legend, but was actually just proof of how broke they were. He needed desks. Desks were expensive. Doors were cheap. So he went to Home Depot, bought rough wooden doors, some 4x4 lumber, and bolted them together. That wasn't a style choice. That was survival. Every dollar saved on a table leg was a dollar spent on fighting for a customer. His employees sat at those doors, knees knocking together, sweating through their shirts, fueled by a blind faith in this weird captain. They sold books. Sure. But that was just camouflage. On the surface, Amazon was a friendly online bookstore. A place to buy romance novels and cookbooks. But inside Jeff Bezos' brain, Amazon was never a store. It was a trap. A honey trap designed to collect the most valuable asset of the 21st century. Not your money. Your behavior. From day one, when that bell rang in the garage for every order, Jeff didn't see you as a customer. He saw you as a data point. He wanted to know what you liked, what you hated, how long you hovered over a button, and exactly what triggered you to pull out your credit card. People laughed at him. The press called him a nerdy book peddler. Wall Street called his company Amazon.bomb. But they were wrong, dead wrong. They saw a geek packing books on the floor. Jeff Bezos saw a future where he stood in the center of the global flow of commerce, controlling everything from your baby's diapers to the movie you watch on Friday night. And that laugh. That mechanical laugh we heard at the start. That's the sound of a chess master who knows he's already won the game before you even moved your first pawn. But to get from that dusty garage to the throne of the richest man on earth, Jeff Bezos had to kill something. He had to kill the human weakness inside him to let the monster rise. And that transformation began with a single event. An event that wiped out thousands of companies and destroyed millions of lives overnight. Welcome to the Crucible of the year 2000. Do you know what free fall feels like? I don't mean skydiving. I mean standing on the peak of Mount Everest, looking down at the world like a king, and then suddenly the ground beneath your feet just vanishes. That is exactly what happened in March of 2000. Weeks earlier, Amazon was America's darling. Time magazine named Jeff Person of the Year. Wall Street hailed him as a prophet. Amazon stock hit $107 a share. His employees' secretaries, packers looked at their stock options and saw millions. They dreamed of lake houses and retiring at 30. Everyone was drunk on the dot-com Kool-Aid. They thought the party would last forever. Then, the lights went out. The bubble popped. It wasn't a dip. It was a massacre. In the blink of an eye, trillions of dollars evaporated into thin air. Pets.com, Webvan Toys, billion-dollar companies turned to ash. And Amazon, the great Amazon ship, was nose-diving straight into the abyss. The stock plummeted. From over $100 down to $6. Do the math. If you had $1 million, you now had 60 grand. Jeff's parents' retirement fund, gone. His employees' life savings, vaporized. The media turned on him faster than a bitter ex. The headlines were brutal Amazon.bomb. Amazon.toast. Financial analysts went on national TV and guaranteed Amazon would be bankrupt in 6 months. The air inside Amazon HQ stank of death. Imagine walking into work. Rows of empty desks. The guy who sat next to you yesterday is gone. Boxes of personal belongings piled up in the hallway. Nobody makes eye contact because they're terrified they're next. The silence was so heavy you could hear your own heartbeat. That is when the fear sets in. The primal human fear: hunger, loss, irrelevance. And in the eye of that storm, what was Jeff Bezos doing? A normal leader would hold emotional town halls. He'd cry. He'd make promises. He'd say, "We are a family." Jeff Bezos is not a normal leader. In those dark days, the human part of Jeff Bezos turned off. The machine took over. He didn't look at his staff as friends anymore. He looked at them as variables in an equation that needed solving. If a variable didn't add value, delete it. He fired 15% of his workforce. He shut down call centers. He cut every perk, from free coffee to holiday parties. The mantra "get big fast" was thrown in the trash. The new order was cold and brutal: get efficient or die. There's a story that during a tense meeting, an executive complained that the staff was exhausted and morale was broken. Jeff looked him dead in the eye and said, "The stock is not the company. And the company is not the stock. Get back to work." That coldness chills you to the bone. But you know what's scarier? He was right. Jeff realized that to save the sinking ship, the captain can't be soft. Sometimes to save the vessel, you have to throw the crew overboard. It was ethically brutal, but strategically genius. In that burning crucible, the dreamers burned alive. The weak quit. The only ones left were the hardened survivors, the ones who believed in Jeff's vision more than they believed in reality. Amazon wasn't a fun startup anymore. The fire burned that innocence away. What walked out of the ashes wasn't a bookstore. It was a gladiator. An iron-skinned monster covered in scars, with a will to survive that was terrifying. Jeff proved to the world that he didn't just dream about the stars. He knew how to hold the scalpel and cut his own flesh to survive. But survival had a price. When Amazon turned profitable, when the green numbers replaced the red, something had changed forever. Jeff's smile lost its warmth. His eyes became more calculating. And most importantly, he learned a blood lesson: never rely on anyone. Don't rely on Wall Street. Don't rely on FedEx. Don't rely on God. Amazon had to become a closed ecosystem, an impenetrable fortress. And to do that, Jeff needed to build a cage. A cage so comfortable, so invisible, that once you stepped inside you would never want to leave. He called that cage Prime. Let's be honest for a second. When was the last time you bought toothpaste at a physical store? Or batteries? Or a phone charger? You don't remember, do you? Why would you? Why would you get in your car, burn gas, fight for a parking spot, and stand in line behind a guy paying with pennies just to buy a $5 item? You wouldn't. You just pick up your phone, tap. And 2 days later, it's there, like magic. We call this convenience. Jeff Bezos calls it the moat. But if we look at it through the lens of behavioral psychology, it has a different name. It's called a cage. The year is 2005. Amazon is surviving, but it's not dominating. Jeff walks into a meeting room and drops a bomb. He wants to launch a membership service. For $79 a year, customers get free 2-day shipping on everything. His CFO nearly had a heart attack. The math made absolutely no sense. Shipping was expensive. If they gave it away for free, they would lose millions on every single order. Wall Street laughed again. They said Jeff was running a charity, not a business. But Jeff wasn't looking at the shipping costs. He was looking at your brain. He understood a cognitive bias called the sunk cost fallacy. Here is how it works. The moment you pay that $79, a switch flips in your head. You tell yourself, I paid for this membership. I need to get my money's worth. So you stop checking prices at Walmart. You stop Googling for better deals. You buy the book from Amazon, then the blender, then the socks. Suddenly, you aren't just shopping, you are earning back your membership fee. It was a psychological masterstroke. Prime wasn't a shipping service. It was a loyalty tax. It turned casual shoppers into devoted cult members. Before Prime, the average customer spent $400 a year. After Prime, that number tripled. And then, the addiction set in. Jeff realized that speed wasn't just about logistics. Speed was a drug. When you click buy now, your brain releases a tiny hit of dopamine, anticipation. Then, 2 days later, thud. The box is on the porch. Another hit, relief, reward. He compressed the time between want and have until it was almost instant. He trained us, like Pavlov's dogs, to drool at the sight of a brown truck. But while we were all distracted by the cardboard boxes and the free shipping, Jeff Bezos was building something else. Something far darker and far more powerful. While the world was watching the store, Jeff was quietly stealing the land underneath it. It started as an accident. Back in the early 2000s, Amazon's own engineers were drowning in chaos. Their internal computer systems were a mess. So, Jeff issued a mandate: build a system that is clean, modular, and scalable. They built it. They called it Amazon Web Services, AWS. At first, it was just for them. But then, the algorithm man had a thought. If we need this, doesn't everyone else need this too? In 2006, he started renting out Amazon's supercomputers to the world. This is the part of the story that most people don't understand. They think Amazon is a retailer. They think Amazon is the Walmart of the internet. They are wrong. Amazon is the electric company of the internet. Think about this. When you binge watch Stranger Things on Netflix, you are using Amazon's servers. When you scroll through Instagram, you are using Amazon's storage. When the CIA tracks a terrorist target, they are doing it on Amazon's cloud. Even when you try to escape him, you are paying him. Remember when you swore you'd never buy from Amazon again because you hate how they treat their workers? So you canceled Prime and went to watch a movie on Disney Plus instead. Joke's on you. You just paid Jeff Bezos. He is the landlord of the digital world. Every startup, every government agency, every competitor, they are all just tenants living in his building. And every month, they pay rent. This is the invisible cage. You can choose not to buy the book. You can choose not to buy the shoes. But you cannot choose to leave the internet. AWS became the profit engine that fueled everything else. For years, Amazon's retail business, the store part, actually lost money, or barely broke even. How did they survive? How did they crush https://www.google.com/search=diapers.com? How did they destroy Toys R Us? Because they didn't need to make money on shoes. AWS was printing billions of dollars of pure profit in the background. Jeff used that money to subsidize the store. He could afford to sell you a TV at a loss just to drive Best Buy out of business because his server farm was paying the bills. It was unfair. It was predatory. and it was brilliant. He built a machine where the left hand fed the right hand, and the right hand strangled the competition. And then, the cage moved into your living room. He realized that waiting for you to pick up your phone was too slow. He wanted to be in the air you breathe. Enter Alexa. Now, you don't even have to tap. You just speak. Alexa, buy me paper towels. It feels like magic. But ask yourself, why is he selling these devices so cheap? Sometimes for $20. Because he doesn't want your $20. He wants your life. He wants to know what music you play when you're sad. He wants to know when you turn off the lights. He wants to know who is in your house. Every voice command trains the algorithm. Every purchase sharpens the model. We thought we were buying a smart speaker. What we actually bought was a wiretap that we voluntarily installed in our kitchens. So here we are. We live in a house built by Bezos. We watch movies hosted by Bezos. We buy food delivered by Bezos. We talk to robots named by Bezos. It is a world of ultimate convenience. You can have anything you want, anytime you want it, without ever leaving your couch. It is comfortable. It is safe. It is warm. But make no mistake. When you look at the bars of a cage, does it really matter if they are made of gold? Somewhere around 2017, something weird happened. The Jeff Bezos we knew, the dorky guy with the goofy laugh and the oversized khaki pants, vanished. He didn't just retire. He evolved. Or maybe he mutated. Suddenly, photos started popping up. There was Jeff at a conference, wearing a bomber jacket and designer shades, looking like he was auditioning for the role of a villain in a Fast and Furious movie. There was Jeff on a mountain, flexing biceps that looked like they were forged from Prime delivery boxes. The internet lost its mind. Memes were everywhere. Who is this guy? People asked. Is he taking ish? Is he a cyborg? We laughed. We called it a midlife crisis. We thought, oh look, the billionaire is getting a divorce and buying a leather jacket. How cliché. But if you think this was just vanity, you haven't been paying attention. Jeff Bezos doesn't do things by accident. He doesn't just hit the gym. He optimizes his biology. For 20 years, he conquered the internet. He conquered logistics. He conquered Wall Street. What was left to conquer? The only thing standing in his way was his own mortality. And with the new body came the new life, and the end of the old one. In 2019, the news broke. Jeff and Mackenzie were splitting up. The woman who drove the Chevy Blazer. The woman who packed the first boxes while sitting on the floor of that freezing garage. She was leaving the empire she helped build. It was the most expensive divorce in human history. She walked away with $38 billion. And what did she do? Did she buy an island? Did she buy a sports team? No. She quietly disappeared. She changed her last name. And then, with a speed that shocked the world, she started giving the money away. Billions of dollars. To food banks. To colleges. To people who were crushed by the very economic machine her ex-husband built. It was a silent protest. While Jeff was accumulating, she was redistributing. She was the human conscience leaving the building. And once the conscience was gone, Jeff went full Bond villain. Enter the era of the superyacht. Jeff didn't just buy a boat. He commissioned a $500 million schooner named Karu. It is one of the largest sailing yachts in existence. It is so big, it has a swimming pool. It has a cinema. It requires a crew of 40 people just to keep it floating. And here is the punchline. The boat is so massive, it has its own support yacht. That's right. He bought a yacht for his yacht. Because the first yacht was too pretty to have a helicopter landing pad on it. So the helicopter has to follow him around on a second boat. This is the level of wealth that breaks the human brain. But nothing sums up new Jeff better than the incident in Rotterdam. When the ship was finished, there was a problem. It was too tall to fit under the historic Koningshaven Bridge in the Netherlands. This bridge is a national monument. It survived the bombings of World War II. The locals love it. So, what did Jeff do? Did he make the mast shorter? Did he find another route? Of course not. He asked the city to dismantle the bridge. Think about the ego required to make that request. Hello, I know this bridge survived the Nazis, but my boat is very big, so move it. The people of Rotterdam were furious. They organized an event on Facebook to throw rotten eggs at the yacht if it passed through. For a moment, it felt like the pitchforks were coming out. Jeff eventually backed down and moved the boat another way. But the message was clear. The guy who built desks out of doors to save money, he's dead. The man who stands before us now is disconnected from reality in a way that is almost tragic. He lives in a world where history, geography, and gravity are just optional. He isn't trying to be the richest man in the room anymore. He is trying to become a different species. He looks at us, the people complaining about rent, the workers peeing in bottles because they are afraid to take a bathroom break, and he doesn't see fellow humans. He sees ants. And what do you do when you are a giant living among ants? You look up. You look at the only place left where you can truly be alone. You look at the stars. On July 20th, 2021, Jeff Bezos did the one thing no one expected. He quit. He handed the keys of the Amazon empire to his lieutenant, Andy Jassy. He walked away from the day-to-day battles of retail, logistics, and cloud computing. Why? Was he bored? Was he tired? No. He left because he felt Amazon was too small. Think about that. A company that controls the flow of global commerce was too small for his ambition. Jeff didn't want to be the CEO of Earth anymore. He wanted to be the CEO of the future. As the Blue Origin rocket pierced the atmosphere, leaving the dust of Texas behind, Jeff wasn't just a billionaire taking a joyride. He was fulfilling a prophecy he wrote for himself when he was high school valedictorian. He told his classmates he wanted to build hotels in orbit. He told them he wanted to save the Earth by leaving it. They clapped politely. They thought it was cute. 40 years later, as he floated in zero gravity, wearing a cowboy hat and catching Skittles in his mouth, he proved them all wrong. But look closely at that image. There is a man floating in the silence of space, looking down at a blue marble. And down there, on that marble, are millions of workers scanning boxes in warehouses. There are drivers peeing in bottles to meet quotas. There are small businesses going bankrupt because the algorithm buried them. The contrast is heartbreaking. The price of his flight was paid for by their sweat. When Jeff came back down, he said something profound. He said, "You see how fragile the atmosphere is? It's so thin. It's a tiny layer that protects us." For a moment, we saw the old Jeff, the human Jeff. He talked about his real dream. He doesn't want to abandon Earth. He wants to move all heavy industry, all the pollution, all the factories, all the power plants into space. He wants to turn Earth into a protected national park. A garden where humans can live in peace, while the machines work in orbit. It is a beautiful vision. It is noble. But it begs the question, who gets to live in the garden? And who has to work in the machine? Jeff Bezos started as an anomaly. A guy with a nervous laugh and a door for a desk. He broke the way we shop. He broke the way we read. He broke the way the internet works. And in the process, he became the wealthiest man in modern history. He is the algorithm man. He optimized everything. He optimized delivery. He optimized profits. He optimized his own body. But there is one thing you cannot optimize. One thing you cannot put in a spreadsheet, the human soul. So, the next time a brown box lands on your doorstep with that little smiling arrow, take a second to look at it. You aren't just holding cardboard. You are holding a brick of the empire. You are holding a piece of the fuel that is launching one man's dream to conquer the stars. We built this world for him, one click at a time. And now, he is leaving us to find a new one.